good afternoon, good evening from wherever you may be watching. Today is January 17th, 2023, and we are officially clocked in. So, we all know that the political world is just as messy and chaotic as reality TV can be sometimes. And with that being said, we have some pretty juicy things to report on when it comes to our American politics, especially at like the higher levels. So I'm just gonna get right into it. First thing that we're gonna discuss is these classified documents. And I know what you're thinking. It's Trump again. Mm, but it's not. It's not. Unfortunately, the classified documents that we're going to be talking about today, well, we're still going to kind of discuss Trump's classified documents and all of that jazz, whatever. But President Joe Biden has been found to have also had classified documents that were found outside of the White House and outside of where these documents were supposed to have been kept. Okay, so there were, to my understanding, there were some initial documents that were found on January 9th, and these were classified documents that were found at President Biden's private office that was used under his role as vice president. So these were not documents that he has recently taken out of the White House during his current presidential term. These were documents that were taken during his vice presidential term when he was, serving the country with Obama. So the Department of Justice is conducting a damage assessment after a referral from the National Archives has reported that these documents were in fact taken from there. They were not supposed to be at this office. They were supposed to be within the National Archives, and these are these documents contain very sensitive information. And so I know what a lot of people are thinking, especially, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, there was so much stuff that was being held against Donald Trump. He was receiving so much backlash and all of this stuff because when he left office, he also took a whole bunch of classified documents with him. And so, there's still this ongoing investigation and this ongoing legal battle between him and the Department of Justice and everything in regards to those classified documents that he took himself. So now, depending on which side that you're on, there are a lot of Republicans who are calling for the same, I guess, the same amount of scrutiny and everything to be held, and basically the same level of treatment to be given to President Biden as it was given to Trump when, in a sense, they were both found with having classified documents that were in places that they were not supposed to be. But there are a couple main factors, and this is information that is pulled from Lisa Remillard on TikTok, and so I'll probably put in her at or whatever. You can go over there and see a little bit more information. But basically, Lisa breaks down the difference between what happened with Trump taking documents and what happened with Biden taking the classified documents as well. And she basically put them into 4 different categories just so that we can get a better understanding of what it is exactly that we're looking at. Because with a lot of these Republicans who are looking to give Biden the same amount of treatment and reprimand as Trump had gotten when he took classified documents, to a certain extent, I definitely understand where you're coming from, because it's one person took classified documents, the other one took classified documents. It was sort of like in the same like playing field, but there are some pretty key differences in the way that both of them went about like taking these documents, where they were, things of that sort, and even how they're handling like themselves and their in the way that in which that they're the way in which they're cooperating with investigators when it comes to these documents having been found out. So the first category that she compares between Biden and Trump is location. So the documents that were found within that President Biden had, they were locked away in a closet at the Pennsylvania Biden Center for Diplomacy and Global Engagement. And this is an office that he used around 2017 to 2019. And this center was a place to study global policy at the University of Pennsylvania, with the purpose of strengthening U.S. standing when it comes to like foreign policy and things of that sort. These documents was in some way related to the place in which they were kept, because they related to U.S. foreign policy and things of that sort. And the purpose of that building was for students at the University of Pennsylvania to also study things related to these documents and how like the U.S. government system works and things of that sort when it comes to like our international affairs and things of that sort. So that's one key thing in the initial documents that were found at this outside office that President Biden used. And on the contrary, the location that Trump kept the documents that he took from the White House, they were unsecured at his Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida. They were kept in boxes along with other memorabilia, and they were just in desk drawers. So he kept the documents that were very classified, very, important and top secret information regarding the U.S. He kept them in a place that was essentially not very secure. It was just at his home, where we've seen that he's hosted a lot of different like speeches and events and dinners of that sort with all types of people who come in and out of his home. So this is something where he is putting our national security at a very large risk, with them not being in a place that is very secured. And again, not saying that, President Biden was any better, but there was a little bit more security and a little bit more reasoning behind why these specific documents were placed where they were when it comes to where Biden had them outside of the White House, as opposed to Trump keeping them for what seemingly is his own benefit and keeping them at his own estate. So the second category that she talks about are the numbers. So Biden had fewer than a dozen documents, and if you don't know what a dozen is, that's 12. He had fewer than a dozen documents that were found with classification markings that were held at this office. And so they say classification markings because it's not necessarily specified what level of classification these documents had. And if you've kept up with the Trump classified documents case, we see that there are a lot of different levels of classifications in which certain documents are labeled. So all we know is that there were 12 documents, about a dozen documents that did have classification marks, and those 12 documents are what were found at the office that was that belonged to Biden, or that Biden used during his time as vice president outside of the White House, as opposed to Trump, who had thousands of documents that he removed from the White House following his presidency. And of those, 184 documents in total had some level of classification marking. There were 67 of them that were marked confidential, 92 that were marked as secret, and 25 that were marked as top secret. And of those, and included in those documents were information that related to the U.S. Like nuclear information, things that had to do with nuclear materials, weapons, things of that sort. So very, very like high profile, like very, very sensitive information that should not be outside of the most secure location that we essentially should have in America. Um, Also, the other category that she talked about was the National Archives and their dealings with each situation separately. So for Biden's lawyers turned over the documents immediately after closing out his office. So from my understanding, they were cleaning out this office that he had at the University of Pennsylvania. They came across these documents. They recognized what they were. They recognized the markings, identified that, and immediately after finding these, they turned them over to the National Archives. The National Archives were not actively searching for these documents, nor were they asking for them. So I don't even think that they knew that these documents were missing, which in itself poses a completely different issue. But the main thing is that they were not in a process where they were asking for the documents and Biden was refusing to give them to the National Archives, or they weren't like looking for them and asking him for them and he was acting like he didn't know what they were talking about, all of these things. It was just something where they were cleaning out the office, came across something, they recognized that these documents are not in like the proper secure place and we need to get them to that place immediately. So that was on Biden's end. On the other end, when Trump left office, it was a known thing that he had taken a lot of documents and he was asked to turn over these documents, which we are all very aware of. He was asked for over a year to turn in these documents and he said that he had given them all back, which we know is a lie now because the FBI did a search, a whole sweep of his Mar-a-Lago residence where they uncovered a plethora of so many more documents that Trump did not hand over when he was asked the whole first year that he was being asked for these documents. So that comes into play when it comes to like the differences in which these two situations like don't really mirror each other, because on one hand you have one person who is willingly giving over these things once they see that there has been a mistake made and like they weren't even in a place where they were being asked, so it's like they weren't lying about anything. But then it's like you have someone who's like, we know you did it, give it here, I'll give you some, and then it's like I gave you everything, lied about it, got found out, all of this stuff, yada yada yada. So that's another big difference. And then her last category when it comes to these two situations is president versus VP. So we all know that in an effort to cover his own behind, when Trump was asked about taking these documents and all of this stuff, he repeatedly talked about how as president he has the power to declassify information, which he did have, which the president does have that power, but there is a process in which that needs to be done. And that's where the issue comes in, is that he said that he declassified it just by thinking about it, which if things just happen just because we thought about it, there would be a lot more things like going on in this world, obviously. But he did not go through the process, so it was not a legal thing, and there was no procedure that was actually taken for these documents to actually be declassified, so that made his claim like not valid. And then on top of that, it seems like Trump was really the only one who was making these claims, because nobody on his legal team ever said, like, in any like legal findings, like in any claim on any legal documentation that Trump had in fact declassified these documents. It seems to just be like some baseless claims, or just, like some ranting done by him in order to make it seem like, oh, I did do the right thing and all of this stuff, again, just to cover his own self. But then at the time that Biden had used the office in which the documents had been taken out of the White House, he was only the vice president at that time. So with him being the vice president, he didn't have any basis for him to declassify any documents. He didn't have the power to declassify any documents. He had no reason, and he had no foundational basis for him to do that, or to be able to do that. So it brings up the question of, why were these documents taken, and how did they get from the National Archives to this outside office? And really, just why were they there? So at this point, the White House is being very cooperative with the investigation. But around the end of last week, there was another discovery that was made at Biden's Wilmington, Delaware residence, where there were six additional classified documents that were found in his home, in his residence in Wilmington, Delaware, next to his Corvette. That man can't even ride a bike. I don't even know why they gave this man a Corvette. Anyways, so there were a total of 6 pages. And apparently, initially, I believe that whoever it was, part of Biden's team, was, at his home, and they let officials know that, hey, we found like another document here at the property. And the officials were there to, there were Justice Department officials who were there to meet his lawyer, who was overseeing the transfer, because they were aware that there was one document being handed over. But when they got there, there were an additional 5 documents along with the one that they were made aware of that was being handed over to them. There were a total of 18 documents found outside of the White House and in Biden's possession at some capacity. So we've had, a lot of people from both sides speaking out about how they feel about it. There's been a lot of tension between Republicans and between Democrats when it comes to, like how Trump has been handled with like all of these legal battles and all of these things. And then with like the midterm elections that just happened back in November. And, there's just been a lot of things going on. So this has been a really, really hard hit for the Democrats in terms of like a social view, because Biden has talked a lot about his views on Trump when it comes to Trump having taken classified documents, and has really talked down about the behavior. So for it to be a situation where he's also kind of in the same boat, again, there are some very key differences that make his situation different, but ultimately the act of taking secret classified documents outside of the secure place where they're supposed to be with the National Archives, and putting them in a place where they can potentially be more accessible to people who should not have them, on each side is equally as bad, in my opinion. And so Senator Debbie Stabenow of Michigan, she had an interview where basically she summed it up perfectly in 2 words. It's embarrassing. It's very embarrassing, especially if you're someone who has been, like talking so much and has been like so in deep and so vocal about how shameful and like just like illegal and bad it is for former President Trump to take these documents and then to turn around and be like, I kind of did it too, just a little bit. Like, it's an embarrassing situation. Again, it's another developing situation that is ongoing, and as more things are uncovered about this situation, I will be sure to keep you all updated. The next thing that we're going to talk about is Representative George Santos of New York. Now, if you already know about Representative Santos, then you already know where I'm going with this story. But if not, hold on to your seats, because this man is a trip. I don't know how. I could probably guess why, but I don't know how this man got to where he is. So basically, the man lied about everything. He faked his family history, his education, his work resume, all of this stuff in order to be a part of Congress. So there was early on, like before the midterm elections, because he was recently elected back in November during the midterms. So before that, there were some people who actually caught wind of all the lies that he was telling. So the North Shore Leader, which is a small local paper in New York, they broke the story before the November elections even began about how this man was such a liar and a scam artist, essentially. And it wasn't until after the election that bigger news outlets actually caught wind of everything that had been going on, and then all of like these stories started to outpour. By then, I wouldn't say it was too late, because it's never too late. The man is still breathing. Like there's so much that happens like in Congress all the time. Like it is never too late for anything to happen. But it wasn't until like during / like right after the elections happened that bigger news outlets actually started reporting on this man and his lies. And so just a couple things that he actually like lied about that has been that has come to light. So basically, he lied about where he went to for college. He said that he went to Baruch College and that he went to New York University. Both of these places was like, sorry to this man, I don't know who he is. I don't know. I ain't never seen this man before. We don't have no record of him. He never came here. Boom, he lied. He also lied about going to a prestigious high school in New York, which I believe someone said it was Horseman High School in New York. And if you're lying about where you went to high school at, you would lie about anything, because who lies about high school? Like, that's like, you might as well lie about your elementary school. Like, it's so stupid. Like, why would you lie about your high school? This man said that he worked at Citigroup and Goldman Sachs. And then when he was questioned about why he lied about like working at these places, he said that, basically he made it like a language issue. He was like, I never said that I worked for these places. I just said I worked at them. Which is the same thing. Like, if you work for somebody, you work at the company. Like, I don't know who he was trying to get over with that, but it's the same thing. Anyways, he also lied about owning 13 properties. Y'all, this man lives with his sister. He doesn't even have, it's not like he has like his own apartment. Like, no, nothing. It ain't even like his sister lived with him. He lives with his sister. Her name on lease. Like, this man lied about having 13 properties. And, the wildest thing that this man has lied about, and this is not something that anybody should ever lie about or play with, because death is a very serious thing. Anyways, this man lied and said that his mother died in the 9/11 attack. And yeah, he said that she died in 9/11. His mother didn't die in the 9/11 attack. She died. She was actually killed in December of 2016. So it's not even like it was like the same month or anything. Like, it was a completely different year, completely different day, completely different month. But this man lied about that. I think also dumb that he lied about was his grandparents. He said that his grandparents survived the Holocaust as Ukrainian Jewish refugees. Y'all, his grandparents were born in Brazil. They are essentially, they weren't even in Europe. They were in Brazil. And this man said that his grandparents were like Jewish, like they survived the Holocaust. I mean, I guess they did survive it. Like, they didn't die during the Holocaust, but I mean, like, they weren't even there. And the man's not even Jewish. He's Catholic. You're not valid. Like, you're not valid. This man has lied about everything, but all of these lies have gotten this man to where he is today, which is crazy. And it's like nobody was verifying this information before y'all made him part of Congress, before y'all gave this man like an official title in our democracy. Like, nobody decided to verify this. Whoo chow. In his latest scandal, there was a campaign watchdog group that filed a complaint with the Federal Election Commission. They stated that Santos illegally used some of his campaign funds for personal expenses, and then he lied about where those funds actually came from. This man was using election money for his own personal gain. The Nassau County Republicans held a press conference where they all gave reasons for why they wanted Santos to immediately resign. They do not want this man in their circle. He does not deserve it. And he really should not have that title. And the way in which he got there was just like, you lied about it. Like, some of them they be lying about stuff. Not gonna, like, they be lying about things. But to lie about your whole life and then throw your mama in there, like, I know she's rolling over in her grave. Like, the mama just like, what? How did I get put into this? Like what did I do to get here? Like, it was so unnecessary. And so a lot of these Republicans who are in the House have been speaking out against him, but Mr. Kevin McCarthy he real tight-lipped on the situation. But if you've been watching everything that's been going on, Mr. McCarthy just went through 15 rounds of voting in the House to become the Speaker. And throughout those 15 rounds of voting, Santos has been there by his side. And we know that it has been a complete issue when it comes to the Republicans voting for their Speaker of the House. So to have somebody who has been there and you see that they are loyal to you and they have like dedicated themselves to you and your advancement and all of this stuff, when you have to like pull teeth to get other people to like get on the bandwagon, it's kind of like he doesn't want to bite the hand that fed him, essentially. But at the same time, it's just like, it's just a really sticky situation. I wouldn't want to be Mr. McCarthy either, but I mean, and I'm not, but if it was me, I would be like, that's not okay. It's not okay, like, in the slightest bit. Representative Nick LaLota wants the Department of Justice and the Federal Election Commission to freeze Santos's accounts, and he said that if those federal agencies need more authority to do so, I'll take the lead. So this man's like, y'all need to get with it or get lost. And if y'all can't handle it, let me do it. Like, put me in the ring. Like, put me in, coach. Because this is something that a lot of like Republican leaders are not standing with. They do not see this as someone who they want to get behind, someone who they want to work with, or somebody who's even worthy of the position that they have. And that is a lot coming from Republicans. No tea, no shade. There were also 6 other House Republicans that were calling for Santos's resignation, along with Lolota, and they asked the House Ethics Committee to also launch an investigation because, again, this is a situation where this man has not been honest about who he is, where he comes from, his education, his background, like his the work that he's done, who he's worked for, all of this stuff. And again, morally and ethically, this is not somebody who should be in a like official position who is helping make decisions for this country and for the people of New York. But Santos, he was being a little sassy, a little feisty. He was giving a little bite back, and everybody, has been in his face going throughout the house, and like following him and all of this stuff, and all of these persons like, are you gonna resign? Are you gonna resign? Like, people want you to resign. How do you feel about that? What are you gonna do? Are you gonna step down? And he was just like, I'm not resigning. I'm not going nowhere. If y'all want me gone, I need 142 people to ask for my resignation, and then I'll resign. Now, I don't know if this situation or that statement has any actual grounds. The man is a liar. He's been proven to be a liar, so who knows if he actually, will resign if he has like the 142 people. But that has been the statement that he has made in regards to people asking for his resignation. He said, give me 142 and I'm gonna step down. But with his track record, who knows what he's gonna do. But yeah, so politics is so messy. It be real juicy sometimes though, but it is so messy, but very entertaining at the very least. But yeah, like, that's all I have today about the people who essentially run this country and make the most important decisions for us. They are a mess, unfortunately, a big mess. And I can't even really say like hopefully the mess doesn't get bigger, because it always does. That's what they do. But until next time, thank you guys for tuning in and watching with me, and we are officially clocked out. Bye.